Hello, I'm John Jester, CRO at Veeam, and I'm delighted to be here in Korea with all of you. I really enjoyed the presentations we've heard this morning. Professor Lee, I think, really brought to life some of the challenges that we all face on providing security in this era of AI. And what I'd like to do is talk about how Veeam can help there, how we can help you. Oh, I had the earpiece on for Professor Lee. Presentation. But what I was saying is, I'm John Jester, Chief Revenue Officer here at Veeam, and I'm delighted to have some time with you here in Korea to talk about how Veeam can help you implement what I'm going to call safe AI. And that means putting the right security, the right governance around AI and securing your data. So with that being said, just to give you a little bit more details on Veeam. We're very proud to have #1 market share worldwide in the data protection space per IDC. You just saw the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We're in the leader position, but I think very importantly, we're in the strongest position on ability to execute. And that ties back to the customer base we have, the partner base we have, 550,000 customers, 34,000 partners that can work and help our customers. That's how we show up in the market and help out. And then we also provide protection of Microsoft 365. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but software as a service, we still need to have the right security, the right data protection around that. And then many of you are starting to look at Kubernetes, containers, protecting that, potentially due to some of the economic changes that Broadcom has made tied to the VMware acquisition. And we have a product called Kasten, and where we also have #1 market share, protecting Kubernetes, protecting containers. But this gives you a brief overview of Veeam and our position in the market globally. So I refer to this as the converging data crisis. And there's 3 elements that I want to call out here. The first is the visibility gap. And what I mean by that is so many of our customers have complex data estates. Data on-premise, data in applications, data in public cloud, Azure, AWS, GCP. Understanding that data, classifying that data is very important if you want to implement AI. The second thing that we're starting to see is customers are putting AI agents in play, but they don't have the right catalog of all the AI agents. They don't understand what's operating. Professor Lee talked about some things that companies approve. Could be Claude Cowork. Other things, such as Claude Bot, very different security profiles. And our customers need tools to understand when an employee might install that when it's not approved, because the rate that can cause security issues, data issues is tremendous in this AI area. And that's why we think the third component is resiliency. How can you confidently implement AI, but have the right data and business resiliency behind it? That's what I'll talk about a little bit. So these are the 3 things that we see as big challenges for our customers. Data visibility and classification, understanding the AI agents that you have in your environment, and then making sure you have resiliency for your business. And there's 6 things that I'd call and say are amplifying the pressure around this. The first is just how much information and data we have. You know, Korea, many of the customers I've met with, you're collecting data from different sensors. I heard about autonomous driving, so many applications of robotics, et cetera. So you have a tremendous amount of data, information coming into your business. We talked a little bit about this, Professor Lee. AI can be a tool for helping you get insights from your business, making your teams more productive. It can also be a devastating tool when put in the wrong hands. We're starting to see an increasing number of cyber attacks using AI to find different vulnerabilities, to do attack rates at different rates, et cetera. So really important that we understand both the benefits of AI, but the potential risk to our business when it's used the wrong way. Third, regulations. Different industries now, of course, are putting out regulations on how you protect your data, what you have to do if you have data leakage, et cetera. We're only going to see more and more of this in the future. The fourth component is, and this is a study that MIT did, almost 90% of AI projects fail to deliver on their business outcomes. Now, that doesn't mean the technology failed or the project itself may have failed. It meant that when customers looked at what was the business outcome they wanted to achieve with the AI project, they continued to fall short. And I'll talk about why that's occurring in a minute. This fifth box, very important. You have to secure data at the data level. You have to have the right security, the identity and access behind that. And then, of course, people are moving to unified platforms. So what changed? So how did we end up in the position we're in? And we've talked about this a little bit, but the first is 5 years, 10 years ago, we thought about security as being perimeter-based, right? You have the right firewalls in place. How do you lock down your environment? And you thought about your data center, your applications, your data. That was your safe environment. And your job was just to keep people that didn't belong out. That's completely changed in this AI-centric era. You need to manage data and security at the data level. And I'm going to talk about how we do this. But it's so important that we move from this perimeter model to understanding data, classifying data, protecting data. The second thing is, hey, we used to think about identity as your employees, maybe your customers or partners if they have access. You now have to think about AI agents as having an identity. And that identity provides what data do they have access to? What are the policies that govern how they operate? But we have to think about AI agents in a very different way. Governance, again, things are happening much more quickly. You have to have real-time audits in place. And then things like recovery. We used to think about recovery as, oh, a database went down, or there was a cyber attack and we have to do a mass recovery. What's really important in this era of AI is that you understand those AI agents. What data are they reading? What data are they writing, editing, deleting? You have to have governance around those AI agents. And frankly, the ability to take actions and undo what they've done when we have issues. And then all of us know this, but the speed of which these AI agents operate is tremendous. So if things go wrong or you have the wrong permissions in place, you can have a tremendous amount of damage occur in a very short amount of time. So this is what's changed. And all of you, we live in this world, we see this pace of change, but what can we do about it? And the first thing is, Veeam acquired Security AI in December 2025 for roughly $1.8 billion. And why did Veeam do this? Why did we think this was going to benefit our customers? The top line issue is we see this convergence of data resiliency, business continuity, tying back to enabling safe AI. How do you help customers implement AI projects, but do it in a way where they have confidence in their data and they have trust? And there's kind of 4 components that we think about here. The first is, hey, you have to understand your data. So the ability to go out, classify data across your entire environment. And as I mentioned before, that's applications, that's databases in your data center, that's Azure, AWS, GCP. But classification, understanding of data, critically important. The second is security. So do you have the right security and controls on that data set? What we find when we work with customers and we do this analysis are 2 things. One is we find a lot of old data that hasn't been accessed in years that's sitting in an environment. And when you bring in LLM models, you start training your AI agents on these data sets, you're training them on old data that's the wrong thing. That's going to give you the wrong answers. So we do something called ROT, stands for ROT, analysis, where we can find that data that hasn't been accessed, hasn't been used for a long period of time, and we exclude that. from the AI model. Very important. The second thing is realizing when you don't have the right access controls on data sets. I will tell you a funny story. I worked at Microsoft for 20 years. About 10 years ago, Microsoft rolled out a SharePoint project across the entire company, and they created a master search index so that you could search across every SharePoint site in the company. This was talked about as a new era of collaboration within Microsoft, a big project. Within one day of that rolling out, everything had to be taken down, taken offline. Why do you think that was? Because the employees started searching for salary data, compensation data, acquisitions, and all of that data had been sitting on these SharePoint sites for years, right? But it was hard to find. There wasn't a search engine for people to find it. Well, guess what? Microsoft search capabilities 10 years ago are nowhere near the capabilities of modern AI agents. So if you have data that's out, it's in your estate, it doesn't have the right access controls on top of it, you are going to end up with data leakage. And hopefully that's your internal employees, but we've had customers where it leaked to partners, it leaked out of the company. That creates board level, compliance issues that have to be dealt with. So these challenges we've always had. It's just the power and the speed of AI agents makes it more important to get it right. Of course, governing AI agents, incredibly important. And then I'll talk about this in a bit, but we think resilience is a key part of this. If you want to roll out AI projects and you want to be confident in letting your teams take advantage of this, you have to have resiliency behind it. So one of the technologies that security has is what we call the data command graph. So we use a graph technology stack to go out, like I said, scan all of your data, understand identity controls, access controls, etc. But this is kind of the heart of the engine. And we see this as a challenge that most customers have. Understanding that data estate, understanding every permission, every identity, every access control at an employee level, at an application level, at an AI agent level. And doing this is the foundation of setting up your AI projects. Now, where do we see some of the challenges occur when we're working with customers? So we talked about this, AI agents acting on data. There's data leakage concerns that we've talked about a little bit. Obviously breaches, and we are seeing an increase in hackers using AI to penetrate networks, penetrate companies, etc. Veeam owns a company called Coveware that does incident response for the Fortune 200. So the biggest companies in the world, if they have a cyber attack, Coveware comes in, helps them recover their data, helps them get their business back up and running. We have seen this take off the number of breaches that are now supported by AI. So the cyber attackers are using it, they're taking advantage. Compliance violations, hey, if you're in financial services or healthcare or some of these industries, it's a serious compliance violation when you expose this data. And then something that we've all had challenges with since we've been running IT systems and businesses is, hey, people just make mistakes as well. And some of the biggest outages and recoveries that we've had to help customers with came back to simple mistakes. It's not always a malicious hacker using AI to get into your environment. It's mistakes that occur. So to help with this challenge, we've come out with a product that we call Agent Commander. And this is Veeam and Security AI, a unified solution for our customers that does three key things. The first thing it does is it will detect all AI agents running in your environment. So hopefully that is the AI agents that you've sponsored, that you've approved, could be, like I said, Claude Cowork or Microsoft Copilot, et cetera. But you want to inventory these. You want to understand their permission, their governance. Now, we also tend to find a lot of AI agents that are not approved by the company, that employees have installed, that they've started to use. Some of these chatbots you can now do inside of a web page. You don't have to have an application installed on the computer, et cetera. But this is going to become very, very important. A lot of employees with good intentions, trying to do a better job, trying to be more productive, are driving these data leaks because they're using tools that are not approved. The second thing is what I talked about before. You have to understand your data estate. You have to classify it. You have to have the right security controls, the right identity and access layers on top. Super important. This is what that data command graph does that I talked about. And then third is, and this is where I believe we can enable customers to move forward faster with AI, is the ability to monitor every AI agent. What data do they look at? What data do they write? What do they delete? And if you track all of the actions that these AI agents take, you now get the ability to undo them. So if you've rolled out a project and you've had AI agents take actions on your data that you didn't want, this product will give you the capability to say, hey, undo all of those agent actions. And we've seen customers become more confident in piloting and trying AI projects when they know that they have a detailed log. They have data lineage of what these AI agents did, and they can undo that if necessary. But that is Agent Commander. And again, how do we see customers using this in the projects that we're working on? A lot of it today is, hey, I have Microsoft Copilot. I want to turn it on, but I don't want data leakage. I don't want employees seeing data they shouldn't have. I don't want data leaking out to partners. So it's using these basic AI agents, basic chatbots, but do it in a safe and secure way in your environment because you've classified your data, you understand the access. The other thing we see is, of course, hey, companies are building bespoke agents. And you might do that with AWS Bedrock, you might do that with other solutions. But again, when you do this with security AI and you have that LLM firewall in place to access your data, you can do this with confidence. Shadow risk, I've already talked about, but again, almost every project we run with a customer, we find AI agents, we find AI usage that the CIO, the CISO were not aware of. So this is becoming, I think, a bigger and bigger challenge. And then, of course, compliance. So with that being said, this product, we've just announced it. My CEO is actually at RSA this week. We're talking about this product there. But we do have an early access program. So if this is something you're interested in, come talk to the Veeam team that's here at the event. We'd like to give you early access, let you see what this technology can do for your business. Because I do truly believe, hey, this lets you roll AI out with confidence, that you can have projects with a higher success rate, but that you have the right governance on those AI agents, you have the right governance on your data, and frankly, you have the resilience you need behind it. Now, that's how we think about AI projects. Another thing I want to talk briefly about is everyone is using more and more software as a service solutions, right? And that's the ones that we all know. Microsoft 365, of course, very popular. Identity management with Entra ID, Azure, Salesforce, and then a product we have called Cloud Vault, which is providing secure, immutable storage in the public cloud for customers. That runs on Azure, that runs on AWS. But we do believe you have to have the right data backup policy, the right recovery, the right security, intelligence, and then portability of that data to be confident in how you run your business. And I would say in the past couple of years, there's been a very big increase in understanding. Microsoft provides an SLA on service uptime. So for Microsoft 365, they guarantee you it will be up a certain period of time. If it's not, they have financial penalties. They don't guarantee the safety of your data. That is your responsibility. So this is why we've seen so many customers now start to use Veeam to protect Microsoft 365, to protect Entra ID, We have almost 30 million users that we protect today. And as I mentioned, per Microsoft, that's #1 market share. But that's something I would encourage you to think about. How are you protecting your data that's running in these SaaS solutions? Salesforce, Microsoft 365, et cetera, critical. We see in cyber attacks, those are attack vectors, right? And what they do is they crack your own environment, they use your credentials to then go and take action that you don't want on Microsoft 365, Salesforce, et cetera. So I think important to think about that. I know how important it is to have a local data center. For all of you based here in Korea, we worked very, very closely with Microsoft and are super pleased. And this is relatively new, so September 2025. If you are using Veeam Data Cloud, that application is running in the Korean data center. Your data is in the Korean data center here. So something that I know was important to you, we worked closely with Microsoft on, and we've rolled that out. Of course, you can do redundancy, business continuity anywhere in the world, but I think having a data center in Korea is very important. The other thing to mention is Veeam Data Platform, not the same VDP that Professor Lee spoke about this morning, but that's the name of our product for protecting your data estate on-premise or in the cloud in hybrid environments. But I think very important to call out, many of our customers, 75% of our customers, protect VMware. And we're starting to see many of those customers consider alternatives just due to pricing pressure, et cetera. And Veeam protects Hyper-V, Nutanix, Red Hat, Oracle, Proxmox, Scale, and now HPE VME. So regardless of the solution you decide to use for virtualization, we can protect you, and we provide migration tools because we are seeing customers that are moving off VMware. Now that's the virtualization stack. Of course, we protect all the top public clouds. Of course, most of our customers still have physical servers in the data center, applications, et cetera. But that's how Veeam Data Platform, Veeam Data Cloud comes together to give you data protection, to give you business continuity, and to give you cyber resilience. But that is our point of view of what we see in this world of AI and data resiliency converging. And what we say is, hey, you cannot do AI without data security. The things I talked about, understanding identity and access, understanding that you can't just have perimeter security, you have to do that at the data layer. And frankly, you can't trust running AI agents, doing AI projects, if you don't have data resiliency behind it, if you don't have the ability to track those actions, to understand what actions the AI agents have taken, and the ability to undo or roll that back. That is what we see as trusted AI, is data security and data resilience brought together. And that's what we're investing in, that's where we're putting R&D dollars, that's where we're driving innovation. So with that, I will say, hey, a big thank you again.
Thank you, John, for presenting, right? I wanted to share a little bit more about how the platform operates. So I'm going to showcase to you how the platform goes in action, okay? So John mentioned about all the different kind of use cases. I'm going to focus on the 2 out of the 4. First and foremost, the most important when it comes to understanding your shadow AI risk, right? So how do we do that? This is how the platform is in action. The moment we connect to your data system, we are able to give you the inventory of all your data. As you can see here, all the different files, what are the findings, what are the agents that's connected. Now, it doesn't just stop here. The moment we want to do the classification and understanding of your data, what does sensitive data mean to you and your organization, right? You can go down and see, out of the box, we have over 200 sensitive data elements that is pre-built into the platform. If I scroll down a little bit more, and I look at government identifiers, you can see that we already have Korea, right? Resident registered number as part of a data classifier to understand the sensitive data. It doesn't, again, just stop here. You can customize this, right? We are customizable. You can add in your own custom data element that is unique to your organization, okay? Now, you always ask me this question, oh, Zari, this is good, but how do I know what kind of risk level this sensitive data provide, okay? In our platform, you can classify the level of risk. For example, authentication, API key, very high risk. API secret, very high risk. Well, what happens if I go down a little bit lower, right? I want to see my physical attribute, eye color, hair color. This is a bit lower, right? It's not so sensitive, okay? With all of this information, you can classify to your need, to your benefit, to your organization. And from there, we're able to give you this overview of your data and AI security within your organization. You can see the breakdown, security findings by the different kind of risk severity, the asset posture score, data posture score, right? We're able to look at the different kind of compliance data security framework, where your data is located, right? Again, for demonstration purposes, I connected to a lot of the data sources globally to give you an idea, right? You can see all the different kind of agents, models that is being used on, right? And you can see what are the sensitive data elements that is being picked up, right? And whenever we're looking at data and AI, right, the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of unstructured data, okay? Again, we have the overview for unstructured data here. I preloaded it, right? Yep, and to showcase to you, the moment we scan, we're able to show the volume of the data files that is discovered, what are the different classification labels, which file contains sensitive data, right? We can showcase the severity level, and the best of all, the moment you open and explore, this is where you become that investigator, you know, the likes of Sherlock Holmes, to understand where each of the data exists. So this is my data system. It's located in Bedrock. What is the AI models associated with it, right? What kind of AI agent that is running? Oh, I want to know what kind of sensitive data there is. These are all the sensitive data that is associated with it. Oh, I want to know a little bit more. Let me dive in a little bit deeper. I can see what kind of user principles, the different kind of rules that is being set on my AWS. So you can imagine, you as a security leader, you can ask questions to the system and even put your team into a little bit, hey, do you know what's going on in here? I want to see. You can get the questions answered immediately, right? Now, John mentioned a little bit more about understanding your sensitive data, but you also must be compliant with all the different kind of frameworks. So again, in our platform, right, and I wanted to share with you that this is one of the projects I'm running. We have a list of all the frameworks ready-made for you. Professor Lee mentioned a lot about EU AI Act, right? We can do the ISO 42001 on AI governance, right? The NIST AI RMF. So I've run the project in advance to showcase to you how this actually works and operates, okay? So from here, let me go into one of my projects. Okay, I did the NIST AI framework for my chatbot that I created. As you can see, I've run the NIST AI RMF, and I can immediately see what is my score. Then in areas that I'm losing the score, I am not done properly, I can go and click inside, right? This is 100%, but this is only 76%. Why? Again, it empowers you to ask the questions immediately. It empowers the relationship that you can go with different teams for them to execute the job. Then you can go through the different areas to see what has passed, what has failed, right? And you can run multiple projects for multiple areas, right? Not only on the ISO 42001, the EU AI Act, the NIST AI framework. We also can do things for your privacy law, right? Now, when it comes to all the different kind of frameworks, as you can see, there's a lot that we can do out of the box. What happens is, the moment you know this is being done, how can you reduce any form of footprint that is being targeted to some of the files? John mentioned a lot about the use case on ROT, which is redundant, obsolete, and trivial data. We can build out policies to be able to quarantine these files, right? Then we can connect to any of your ticketing tool, your ITSM tool like Jira or ServiceNow, right, to perform the deletion. As you can see here, this is files. Let me give you a quick snippet. Files that is older than 1 year, do not share with Copilot. So you can set rules like this to give you that enforcement and control, right? Then from here, we're able to showcase to you the command graph. For example, my data element is linked to what files, which table. My database schema is linked to which files, which table, which policy, right? It gives you the understanding. So if I scroll down a little bit more, you can see the breakdown here, right? Who are my users? What kind of data systems there is, right? What policies that control them? And what are the sensitive data elements that exist in all these different files, okay? Now, I know the number one question is, Zari, this is good, this is in English. What happened to Korean? Yes, we can read and understand Korean language. This is something that I obtained on GitHub, so please excuse me. I don't have any other data. We can also do structured as well as unstructured data. Okay, so let me show you how it looks like. Let me connect. And sign in, right? The moment that is showcased, right, it's connecting to the system. I can show the relationship, right? These are all the different files. Like I said, I showcase 2 files, which are flat files. I simply type in Korea, right? I'm able to see there are 4 different files that I've uploaded. I click on the files, I click explore, it showcases the relationship. Yeah, there you go. There you can see email addresses. These files, I've linked it to the South Korean PIPA unstructured privacy law, right? You can see all the different files and different information. Then I can see what are the sensitive data labels, right? And what is it connected to. Okay. And with that, I wanted to share that the key takeaway here and how we accelerate AI projects is to empower you, the business, with what kind of AI models, AI agents that is being running, what kind of sensitive data that is being input into those AI models and AI agents, right? We're able to do that risk detection, that risk auto remediation, and we're able to comply with all the different regulations, right? Especially when it comes to AI, which is always booming today. Okay. And that's my quick demo. Thank you.